Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I want to thank you all so much for being here, and I want to thank my really good friend, someone I knew long before I ran for City Council, Phyllis Waisman, for that very, very kind introduction. A big round of applause for Phyllis, who's amazing. I want to thank her for all of the work that you do in this district and in the community, and for your amazing, amazing leadership. I want to thank Susan Marinoff-Zausner for hosting us today in the amazing Intrepid Museum. A big round of applause for the Intrepid and the leadership here. For those of you that may not know, my name is Corey Johnson, and I represent District 3 in the New York City Council, which covers the west side of Manhattan, spanning the neighborhoods of the West Village and Greenwich Village, the Meatpacking District, Hudson Square, Chelsea, Hell's Kitchen, Flatiron, a little bit of the Upper West Side, Columbus Circle, Times Square, the Theater District, the Garment District, Hudson Yards, the High Line, the Hudson River Park, Penn Station, Moynihan Station, the Port Authority Bus Terminal, the Javits Center, the Whitney Museum, and the Intrepid Sea and Space Museum. So I have that distinct honor and privilege. I want to welcome you to our 5th annual West Side Summit, and as I look around, I really do see, I'm looking at some friends right now, I really do see so many friends from so many different neighborhoods like the ones I just mentioned. We convene this event every single year because this council district is comprised of many different neighborhoods and different community boards, but we are all one community. And so today, I want to give you some important highlights of my activities and my office's activities over the last 12 months in the district and down at City Hall. And then we'll have the moment you've all been waiting for, where we will announce the results of this year's participatory budgeting vote. When you arrived, you were handed a survey, and we invite you to please write in any ideas you may have to improve the community. Feedback from you is the most important information that I receive as an elected official, and we will collect these surveys at the end of the event. We'll review each and every single one of the surveys that's filled out to see how we can better serve you. It is my pleasure, if they are here, to introduce Eric. Are there any other elected officials that are here with us today? Not yet. Okay, so when they arrive, I'm happy to introduce them. We're certainly joined by some of the other elected officials that represent this community. So 5.5 years ago, I rose my hand to take an oath to serve as your council member, the opportunity to work alongside all of you on behalf of our neighborhoods and the city's most vulnerable has been the most incredible experience that I ever could have asked for. And I just completed my first 1.5 years as Speaker of the New York City Council, and thank you. Words cannot express how honored and humbled I am to serve the people of New York City in this capacity. And I have used my motto that I always say every day as a guide to help me, and that is, do the most good for the people who need it most. That is the creed that I live by, and that is what I have sought to do, to uplift neighborhoods and to help the most vulnerable among us. And in the face of continuing challenges from Washington, D.C., I am so proud of everything that we have achieved together this past year, both locally in the district and throughout the entire city. So I want to start off just by taking you through some numbers over the last 12 months. In the last 12 months, my district office has helped 2,463 constituents, connecting residents with important city services and helping constituents resolve tough issues. For example, in February, during 18-degree weather, tenants in Greenwich Village reached out to my office because their apartments were without heat and hot water. City agencies initially provided a 2-week estimate for restoration of that heat and hot water, and we refused to accept that timeline. My amazing staff worked overnight with the Department of Buildings, Con Edison, and the landlord, and we got the heat restored within 24 hours for the people living in that building. Our Fresh Food for Seniors program had its biggest year ever. Last year, we delivered 1,678 bags of affordable fresh fruits and vegetables for our senior centers through this program. We run it in partnership with our incredible Manhattan Borough President, Gail Brewer. If you don't know about the program, it's really, really awesome, and you can call my district office. The program is about to start up again in It is one of the best deals in New York City, and the fruit and vegetables are amazing, so please sign up. Since this time last year, we have held 36 community events, an unprecedented amount. We had 15 the year before, and we had 36 local events last year, from our free tax preparation day to a workshop that we held on how to start a block association, to hosting HPD at our district office to help resolve local issues and complaints, to our community resource fair, to our first ever toy drive, which collected 573 toys for local kids. And don't forget to check out our composting workshop, which is happening this Thursday evening, and our free bike helmet giveaway, which is happening on June 8th. We hosted 150 attorney consultations at our free monthly housing clinic in my district office. And with our mobile office program, my district office staff made themselves available to constituents by going directly to where they are, talking with constituents and residents about the issues in their community and providing information about key city services. We held pop-up mobile offices at Penn South, at Manhattan Plaza, and at Christopher Park in the Village, and we'll be starting more of these mobile pop-up offices this fall. In fiscal year 2019, I allocated over $3 million in expense funding to 150 local nonprofits and $8 million in capital funding for our local parks, $2.3 million for upgrades to local schools, and $8 million for cultural institutions and theaters throughout the district. One of my top priorities as your council member has been to invest in our parks and in our local green spaces. And that is why I am proud to, hi Lowell, and that is why he's the chair of our Parks Committee on Board 4. That is why I'm proud to say, whether you live in Hell's Kitchen or Chelsea or Midtown or the Village, there is a park that is near you that has either recently been renovated or is going to be renovated in the very near future. This summer, we will be cutting the ribbon for the first new public park in East Chelsea in over 40 years on West 20th Street, aptly named Chelsea Green. I am very, very excited. I see my dear friend Sally Greenspan, who was the little engine that could in getting it done. A completely renovated Clement Clark Moore Park on 10th Avenue is also reopening this summer with an expanded, I see Alan, with an expanded play area and upgraded infrastructure to prevent flooding, which was a long-time problem at this local playground. Last summer, we saw the reopening of the beautifully renovated, let me go down the slide, yes. Last summer, we reopened Matthews Palmer Playground in Hell's Kitchen, which is one of the tallest slides in Manhattan, as you can see. And we also cut the ribbon on a new children's playground at Chelsea Waterside Park. In the heart of Greenwich Village, we cut a ribbon on the beautiful new wrought iron fence at Jane Street Garden, and the newly renovated Jackson Square and Father Fagan Parks were renovated and upgraded as well. This past year, I allocated the remaining funding to begin the design process to open a brand new green space in Hell's Kitchen on a city-owned lot at 10th Avenue between 48th and 49th Street. So we're going to get a brand new playground in Hell's Kitchen. And I allocated funding in 2019 to fully renovate the beloved basketball courts at Chelsea Park, which will transform this deteriorating basketball court into one of the best basketball courts in the entire city. We have gone to the mat, all of us, for Hudson River Park, and in addition to the millions in council discretionary funding that I've allocated for capital improvements, last year we successfully obtained $100 million from the city and state combined, and this year I am fighting to get the city to match the $23 million that the state put up in the April 1st budget. My goal is to have the northern portions of the Hudson River Park fully funded to get everything built out and complete by the time I leave office. And I have been working really closely with my state colleagues, Assembly Members Rosenthal, Gottfried, and Glick, and Senators Hoylman and Kavanaugh, and Congressman Jerry Nadler, and Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer, on finding a solution to the Hudson River Park's Pier 40 at Houston Street and the West Side Highway. We obtained the $100 million a few years ago to repair the piles underneath the pier to stabilize it, and now we need to do something about the deteriorating structure that's on top of those piles. The tow pound at Pier 76, just south of here, has got to go. The mayor knows that getting this tow pound moved out of the park is one of my top priorities, and we have been working very, very hard month after month to craft a solution, to get a plan to get the tow pound removed off of Pier 76, to transform that into a park as well. One of my goals as council member, as you heard from Phyllis, has been to fill every empty viable tree pit in the entire district. It is an ambitious goal. It's an ambitious goal. In 5.5 years, I think it's the most popular thing I've done, trying to fill every tree pit. And I am happy to report that we have already planted hundreds of new street trees, and with an additional allocation of $400,000 last year in the budget, we are on track to fill every plantable empty tree pit with a new tree by the end of this upcoming fall planting season, which is very, very exciting. And our parks are only made better by the activities and programming that are in the parks. And that's why last year I allocated $75,000 to support volunteer, cultural, and educational and athletic program in our local parks and throughout the entire district. And like our parks, our historic streetscapes and neighborhoods are such a critical piece of our West Side community, and it is our responsibility to ensure that they survive for future generations. And in the past year, it has been a real privilege to work alongside many of you and many incredible preservationists who live in our community. And that is why I am proud to have been part of the campaign for a landmark designation of Tin Pan Alley, a stretch of buildings on 28th Street between 6th Avenue and Broadway that during the turn of the last century was the birthplace of the American pop music industry. I'm happy to report that after many, many years of effort, the Landmarks Preservation Commission is moving forward with that landmark designation for Tin Pan Alley. Additionally, one of my top priorities has been to help win the individual landmark status for sites of significance to the LGBTQ community. I think you all know next month is the 50th anniversary of Stonewall, and I am thrilled to report that last Tuesday, after much cajoling, the Landmarks Preservation Commission began the formal process of granting individual landmark status to 6 sites of significance for LGBTQ history, including in our district, the LGBT Community Center, Cafe Chino on Cornelia Street, and the Women's Liberation Center on West 20th Street. And we have our sights set on new historic districts in Council District 3. I am very excited to be working with Manhattan Community Board 4 and the Historic Districts Council and local block associations to advocate for the first ever historic district in the neighborhood of Hell's Kitchen. And as sadly, White Horse Tavern has undergone a change of ownership, and as renovations of an unknown nature are about to begin, my colleagues and I have been working and have requested that the Landmarks Preservation Commission move forward with interior landmark status of that Greenwich Village treasure to make sure that it remains unblemished. In addition to winning new landmarks, we must defend the landmarks that we already have, which is why I joined Save Chelsea and Community Board 4 and others in opposing the efforts to gut the westernmost house on Cushman Row on West 20th Street in the heart of the Chelsea Historic District. And I'm happy to say that on Tuesday, LPC heard us loud and clear, and the egregious parts of the application were denied, which is great, great, great news. As I think we've all noticed, our neighborhoods are seeing more and more foot traffic. While the residential population of every council district is about 170,000 people, our daytime population in this district reaches 2 million people every single weekday. And that makes us one of the most densely populated places in the entire city of New York on a daily basis, which means we generate a lot of litter and trash. And yesterday, I stood with Councilmember Antonio Reynoso, who is the chair of our Committee on Sanitation, and I called on the mayor to restore $4.2 million in funding for litter basket collection for neighborhoods across all 5 boroughs, including right here in this council district. Since taking office, we have funded the purchase of hundreds of new, large, high-capacity waste baskets. And this spring, another 70 waste baskets were placed on corners all over the district. You may have seen them. The good people at the Department of Sanitation do a fine job every single day, but it is a tall order in keeping our streets and sidewalks clean. So this year, we expanded our supplemental sanitation service with ACE programs for the homeless, which has been providing cleaning services and giving employment opportunities for men and women who have been experiencing homelessness. Today, currently, we have 4 full-time ACE employees on our streets working 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year. They're emptying and bagging full waste baskets. They're sweeping our sidewalks in some of the dirtiest places, and they're doing so much of the tough work that keeps our streets and sidewalks clean every single day. If you see corners or areas that are particularly bad, let us know, and we can deploy ACE to those corners on a regular basis to clean up those hot spots. We've made it a priority to help create more composting opportunities across the council district, including new drop-off sites in Hudson River Park and curbside pickup for residents at West Beth, Penn South, and Manhattan Plaza. Last year, yes, composting is important. Last year, I allocated discretionary funds for a new food scrap drop-off site in the Village at Christopher Street and 7th Avenue. It's open from every Tuesday morning from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. at Christopher Street and 7th Avenue. In the beginning of next month, we're launching a new pilot program to collect food scraps at Matthews Palmer Playground in Hell's Kitchen. Now, one issue that affects all of us deeply, and it is the unprecedented affordability crisis that faces our city. Our neighborhood small businesses and affordable supermarkets are closing, and the heartbreaking epidemic of homelessness can be seen on almost every single street corner. Longtime residents who have lived here their entire lives are struggling to stay in the place that they made home. And if we're going to dig our way out of this crisis, we need to create and preserve more affordable housing like our lives depend on it. When we say affordable housing, the real question is affordable to who? This year, work was completed on a new 100% permanently affordable building on West 18th Street that is going to provide 160 units of affordable housing in the heart of Chelsea. Clinton Housing's 540 West 53rd Street opened its lottery this fall for 100 units of permanently affordable housing, and we're moving forward with 100% affordable buildings on city-owned lots at 10th Avenue and 48th Street and 54th Street and 9th Avenue. Together, these 2 sites will add nearly 300 units of affordable housing to the community. The former slaughterhouse site near Hudson Yards is on track to provide 250 units of affordable housing, and I support the Hell's Kitchen South Coalition's plan to transform existing road cuts and ramps around the Port Authority into new public green spaces and permanent affordable housing. This plan offers us a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to improve air quality, to create new green spaces, and to add more affordable housing and small-scale retail to this diverse and thriving neighborhood. Since taking office, getting the strip of dilapidated buildings, you all know it, on West 22nd Street and 7th Avenue restored to affordable housing has been one of my top priorities. And I am extremely happy to say that HPD and their nonprofit partner, AFI, are moving forward with the redevelopment of these properties, which have languished for far too long, into 100% affordable housing, the southeast corner of 22nd Street and 7th Avenue. As a side note, if you walked by that block lately, just catty corner across the way, you may have noticed that across the street, the longtime sidewalk shed that was underneath the building on the northwest corner of 7th Avenue and 22nd Street is finally down. It had been there for well over a decade. Few things keep me up at night more than the crisis that we see at the New York City Housing Authority. Years of state and federal disinvestment coupled with NYCHA mismanagement has left 175 precious units of public housing in a state of disrepair. And NYCHA's current financial needs are extraordinary. Right now, the New York City Housing Authority estimates that it needs $31.8 billion with a B, dollars, to bring itself into a state of good repair. That's about $180,000 per unit. NYCHA's most recent plan includes strategies that will allocate $23.8 billion for capital repairs. This would leave an $8 billion gap to fully fund all needed repairs and maintenance, not only to NYCHA housing, but also to community centers and senior centers, which are so vital to NYCHA communities. I grew up in public housing, and I am fully aware how important it is for families who live there. And as I negotiate the city's budget with the mayor over the next month, I will continue to push him and his staff for more funding for NYCHA. I also want to say that my colleagues and I stand firmly with the tenants at NYCHA's Fulton houses and Elliott Chelsea houses. Last month, Congressman Jerry Nadler, who I see is here with us, Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer, State Senator Brad Hoylman, and Assemblymember Dick Gottfried and I wrote to NYCHA Interim Chair and CEO Catherine Garcia, urging NYCHA to present its proposal for the Robert Fulton houses to the development's tenants as soon as possible. Tenants need to hear NYCHA's proposal directly from NYCHA and be given a real opportunity to ask questions, receive feedback, get honest answers, and provide meaningful input. My colleagues and I will not allow any plan to advance that does not protect and preserve the Fulton houses communities, that involves the displacement of any residents in the development, or that diminishes tenants' rights and affordability at Fulton houses. Hi, Darlene. And in Albany, we are in the fight of a generation as the state's rent laws are up for renewal over the next 3.5 weeks. I have been there twice in the last 2 weeks as we fight to strengthen our rent laws, end vacancy decontrol, and achieve universal rent control, which would give rights and protections to market rate tenants as well. It's a big deal. New York City without unique small businesses is no longer New York City. When bodegas and bakeries and barber shops and repair shops and laundromats shut their doors, we lose jobs, we lose services, and we lose a piece of our city. In addition to adhering to the layered regulatory schemes enforced by multiple city agencies, small business owners confront persistent challenges, including rising rents and operating costs and competition from chain stores and e-commerce retailers. And as a result, mom and pop shops across the city have had to close in the face of these challenges. And when we lose these longtime establishments, we lose a piece of the fabric of New York City. Passing legislation to address the small business crisis is one of my top priorities. The City Council is working on several legislative proposals, including the Small Business Jobs Survival Act and a series of bills designed to help small businesses thrive in New York City. One bill would require the city to maintain a vacant storefront registry, similar to a bill that San Francisco just passed. Under this bill, landlords who do not register their vacant storefronts could face fines of up to $1,000 per week. Another would protect small business owners from harassment by unscrupulous landlords. Another bill would create a regulatory review panel to look at all the rules and laws governing small businesses with an eye towards easing unnecessary and outdated regulations and restrictions. And another would require the city to provide legal assistance for tenants facing evictions. It is time for Albany to finally pass a vacancy tax on empty storefronts. Deliberately leaving a storefront empty causes the whole community to suffer, so it must be disincentivized, and I'm hopeful that we can see some movement on this in Albany soon. We owe so much to the generation that came before us, and it's important that we value our seniors and we make sure they get the resources, respect, and dignity that they deserve. And that is why I am proud to support vital services for people who are the backbone of our community. I'm proud that we doubled council discretionary funding to Penn South Social Services this past year. We've been able to expand the hours of Greenwich House's social worker at Westbeth, and I'm proud to have allocated funding for a new part-time social worker at West Village Houses, who will provide case assistance and daily money management and will be on site twice a week. Two events that stood out over this past year: the Greenwich House Judith C. White Senior Center on Barrow Street faced closure due to a financial shortfall. So we stepped in, and I'm proud to say that the council was able to come up with the funding to keep that senior center open. We faced another challenge last year when Hartley House, the 120-year-old settlement house in Hell's Kitchen, reluctantly listed its multi-building property on West 46th Street for sale and moved its offices and programs to a rented space. Founded in the era of the settlement house movement, Hartley House has been providing crucial social services to seniors and to young people in Hell's Kitchen since 1897. But recently, the organization has been financially challenged, struggling to maintain its 121-year-old physical location, and the community stepped in. We rallied around Hartley House. We rolled up our sleeves and we came up with an alternative plan. And in September, we celebrated with hundreds of community members in front of Hartley House to announce that the sale had been called off and the vital community center had been saved. For our young people, for our youth, this past year has also brought some exciting developments as well. The schools in Council District 3 are benefiting from rich partnerships with local nonprofit institutions, and I am grateful for the opportunity to support these programs. We invested a lot of capital funding in our schools. Last October, we cut the ribbon for a beautiful new playground at PS 33 Chelsea Prep. I hope you've seen it. It is really, really gorgeous. Last October, at the lab school, the newly renovated courtyard will also be finished soon. And later this month at PS3 in the West Village, it will finally be getting its air conditioning in its gymnatorium, which is great news. And of course, last September, we finally celebrated the opening of a brand new public middle school at 75 Morton Street in the Village. This school was the result of advocacy by local parents for over a decade, which we saw a state-owned building that needed to be a school, and we did it. 75 Morton Street is now educating students from neighborhoods across Manhattan and will eventually educate approximately 900 middle schoolers every single year. This year, I devoted my first State of the City address as speaker to our city's transportation crisis. I outlined my plan for hopefully someday achieving municipal control of New York City's mass transit system and revolutionizing the way we plan our street space across New York City. Right now, the city's subway and bus service, our mass transit system, is run by the Metropolitan Transit Authority, the MTA, a state-controlled entity. And as a result, we have very, very little say in how the system is operated and funding at a time when it has been in a full-blown crisis. Municipal control would give us control over our mass transit system and control over our transit destiny. The L train debacle is a perfect example of why the MTA needs to be restructured and why we need municipal control. The way we plan our city streets is badly broken as well. There is no larger plan, there is no view of decisions in a larger citywide context, and the decision by the New York City Department of Transportation and the MTA to pilot transit truck priority routes on 14th Street raises many concerning issues for our constituents who reside on blocks immediately to the north and south of 14th Street. I have asked the Department of Transportation to develop a comprehensive comprehensive plan that truly mitigates traffic impacts on side streets, in addition to ensuring that trucks are routed onto 14th Street and not onto our side streets. I've also called on DOT to enlist an independent firm to conduct a true pilot program informed by data with regularly scheduled and ongoing input by local residents, businesses, commuters, community boards, and elected officials. DOT must clearly define the metrics by which it will evaluate this program and must be adaptable as the program progresses. The impacted neighborhoods must also have a comprehensive and robust traffic enforcement agent presence to ensure that both 14th Street and the local streets to the north and to the south have consistent enforcement to move traffic safely and to protect pedestrians and cyclists. My fellow elected officials and I will monitor the situation, and we will be vigilant in fighting for what is best for residents, businesses, mass transit users, pedestrians, and cyclists. We are working towards improvements all across District 3, and we've gotten the Department of Transportation to agree to install enhanced pedestrian safety signals at 23rd Street and 11th Avenue and 44th Street and 10th Avenue. And DOT has finally installed a new stop sign at the intersection of Morton and Washington Street to make the area safer for 75 Morton students. One of the first raised pedestrian crosswalks in Manhattan is being installed at Bedford Street and 6th Avenue. It was one of the winning projects in participatory budgeting a few years ago. We worked with the Penn South Program for Seniors to identify and repair pedestrian ramps around the Penn South campus in Chelsea to make it easier for seniors to cross the street. And in last year's budget, we fought for and won Fair Fares, a game-changing initiative to offer half-price Metro cards to hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers who are living at or below the federal poverty line. Eventually 800,000 New Yorkers will qualify for Fair Fares, helping people living in poverty. Since taking office, I have introduced 91 bills and resolutions, 39 which have passed. And since I've been Speaker, I'm proud that the City Council has enacted 212 pieces of legislation, the busiest and most successful year ever recorded in the history of the City Council. These laws will make it easier for New York City to become a fair, greener, and safer city. We passed the Stop Sexual Harassment in New York City Act, a groundbreaking package of legislation to strengthen New York City's anti-sexual harassment policies and to combat sexual harassment in the workplace. We passed a package of bills aiming at making the for-hire vehicle industry more fair and equitable, putting a pause on the thousands of new Ubers that were hitting our streets each and every month across our district. When Albany let speed cameras get shut down, we stepped in and we had them turned back on around schools across New York City. We made it mandatory for companies like Airbnb to provide the city's Office of Special Enforcement with addresses to their listings, full names of hosts, primary resident addresses, and information on whether people are renting out their entire room or their entire home or just rooms. I think I see Tom Kaler here, and he was a very key person in this effort and in this fight. We passed a bill providing free telephone services to incarcerated individuals on Rikers Island because the city should not be making money off of those calls. And last month, the City Council passed one of the most ambitious and innovative legislative initiatives of any major city, not just in the United States, but in the world, to combat the existential threat of climate change. The centerpiece of this package is a bill that will require large and medium-sized buildings, which account for nearly a third of all greenhouse gas emissions in our city, to reduce those emissions by 40% by 2030 and by 80% by 2050. The very worst performing buildings, the dirtiest polluters in our city, will have to act by 2024 to curb their emissions. This is the most progressive climate change bill that has passed almost anywhere in the entire world. Last week, my council colleagues and I held an almost 9-hour hearing on a bill that I've put forward to ban the sale of fur in New York City. We have heard from both sides of the debate, and I know that there are strong opinions on both sides, and I look forward to hearing from folks on this. I am seeking to prevent the cruelty of animals in our city and across our state and across the world. And this past Thursday, I gave my first major public policy speech on criminal justice reform at John Jay. It unveiled numerous proposals to seek to obtain a fair and more just criminal justice system for the 21st century. We need a criminal justice system based on compassion and on thoughtful policies. At the start of this year, following the election of our new Attorney General, Letitia James, I had the honor of taking on an additional role in serving as acting public advocate for the city of New York. And as acting public advocate, I focused on issues that I thought New Yorkers cared about most: transportation, housing, and schools. I launched 2 citywide transit surveys to hear directly from Strat-payers about the state of our city's subways and buses. I oversaw the creation of a citywide evictions tracking map, and I launched the Digital School Explorer program to help parents navigate the elementary school system, and I began an overhaul of our 3-on-1 system, which makes so many of us crazy. Obviously, these are just a few of the issues that we've taken on, but the common theme among these items is that they strive to help the most vulnerable in our city. We are living in really, really difficult times. We need every single day to do our best individually and collectively to relieve a little bit of suffering in this world, to show kindness and compassion and love, and to do our best to be a counterpoint to what we see happening in Washington and around the world. We ourselves need to be a salve. We need to be a healer in the world. The people in this room, all of you, you do that every single day through the service you do in our communities. And I consider myself unbelievably privileged and honored to work alongside every one of you. So I want to thank you so much for being here today and for doing this work collectively with me. Thank you all very, very much.